My name is Rombaut. I'm from Israel, live in Amsterdam. I'm very glad to be here in Krakow, actually first time for me. It's a great city. For the last 10 years approximately, I was focusing on software engineering. I'm a software developer by myself. In the last 2 to 3 years, I focused on the IoT and security. And I'm here today to discuss about it. All right, I hope you can see correct. Yes. So, I will start with some background about IoT, and we will focus later on the security flows. We will do some hacking exercise. I hope that will go smooth at least, because that's live. Let me switch to the microphone because that thing doesn't work. Okay. So we will do some live hacking. I hope that will go better than these technical issues. And I will also discuss a little bit about the future regarding IoT. So let's start. I want to actually ask you a few questions. So how many of you have Facebook? Just raise your hand. Twitter. How many of you sent a WhatsApp message in the last 15 minutes, or even now while I was busy with this? You see quite some hands. So all this revolution of all the social revolution was called basically the Internet of People. So you can see how successful it was. So you could see how many hands, everyone having Facebook, Twitter. Just some statistics. So, for example, Twitter has about 300,000 tweets every single minute. Facebook users share about 3 million pieces of content every 1 minute. So it can be like photos. YouTube has about 80 hours of videos being shared every 1 minute. Think how crazy it is. So that's definitely showing that the Internet of People was a great revolution. But now, or in the last few years, we started the revolution of Internet of Things. What are things? So basically, things can be anything. It's devices that can communicate between them. So it can be sensors, it can be smart TV. Now when you get to your home, to a smart home, for example, so you have the lighting system adapting the brightness of the light, the temperatures are being set, so it will be like not too warm, not too cold. The TV can recommend you for some TV shows that you might like. And even more than that, it's so exciting because we're getting into the age of self-driven cars. So actually, the estimates are that by 2020, so just in 2 years, there will be about 6 devices per person, 6 IoT devices per person. So it can be like sensor, TV, phone, computer, it can be anything. And that means that there will be between 50 to 100 billion devices by that time. Think how crazy it is. So definitely this revolution is growing exponentially. Today, when you get into the car, you see a booting system. So the phone is automatically connected to the car system. Via Bluetooth or other connections. It shows you what is the recommended way to drive, so you can avoid traffic jams. The music can connect to your phone and play your favorite song. And like I said before, actually some cars actually can automatically drive, like you probably heard about Tesla and some others. Companies are finally realizing that, cars companies are finally realizing that what they sell is not more than just a big computer that you can sit in. So far, sounds fantastic, right? However, it raises a very important question. What about security? What about the privacy? What happens with all the data that is being collected? Is it safe? That's basically the focus for my talk today. I would like to start maybe with a small, well, dramatic joke, I would call it. So it's called the Google NSA and the self-driven car. And basically someone wants to buy a self-driven car for Google in this case. And well, then the NSA, this intelligence office think, oh, well, we have some problems with that guy. And what they do is decide to create a small accident for him. Now, that was a joke, but anyone recognize this? Someone? No one, really? That's a Tesla car. It was just about half a year ago, approximately. So there was a Tesla car that where the automatic driver system was enabled, and actually it caused a car accident. What happened is that actually the car has some camera system, and because there was like a really bright sun, and there was a white truck, so the camera couldn't distinguish between the white truck and the bright background. So it caused an accident. But of course, it's not directly related to security, but it just, so you realize that all those self-driven cars are, the way they work is just cameras, some radar systems, ultrasound maybe, that measure the distance. But all those systems, like any other, can be spoofed, they can be jumped. And yeah, and more than that, you know, there are actually, if we go in YouTube, you can see there are many researchers that could hack to cars and engage the airbag system. So think, for example, one day you drive, I don't know, on the highway, 100 kilometers per hour, and then someone just engaging the airbag system, well, definitely it's going to cause a car accident because you cannot see or do anything. So this is just a small example, and those things are already things that are happening. Every few weeks, you hear about some security breach, some data that got stolen, some factory that was shut down because of some problems with the system, some nuclear facilities. So it's becoming much more serious. Now, the thing is that what's so interesting about it, compared to the past, is that everyone can do it. So you just go to some website. You don't even have to be a hacker or like having a programming experience. Just go to some website, some forum, download the kit to hack. You find a target, click a few buttons, and you're in. It's as simple as it is. And especially when it comes to IoT, none of those devices actually are secured because, well, you could see that IoT is growing so fast, and companies don't put enough effort to actually secure those systems. And for the focus today, I want to show some examples with cameras. So there's a website that you can list all the ACT cameras around the world. So for example, I found a few in Krakow. So this is right now live. I have no clue where it is. It's somewhere in Krakow. I'm not really familiar. Maybe you can recognize. Or just in Poland, you can see, highway, or like, what is this? It's like a kitchen or something. So you can see someone is cooking. All those are hacked cameras of brands like this camera, for example, is, you can see which brand it is. This is, oh, sorry. Oh, my mistake. That was a good one. Oh, can you see? Just a moment. Yeah? Now I can see. But you can see this is like a kitchen. It's live now. It's a camera that got hacked. Let me see that. All right, so you can see that that's like, for example, one camera in a kitchen, or for example, in Krakow, this place, I have no clue where it is. So basically, I can see by location all the hacked cameras. So that's pretty easy. That's just, you know, you don't have to do anything. You just get into the website and watch some cameras. And more than that, that's like how serious it is. Now, there are many options how to hack cameras. And for example, if I just Google some part of a URL, because all those cameras have similar software. So for example, if I go to Google and search this string, so you can see already, I have to add some quotes, but I can add some quote. Now, this part of the URL is a very common string that also cameras use. So you can use Google to actually find some cameras. And many of those cameras doesn't have any username and password. So it's pretty easy. So just by Googling it, I can hopefully find something that match. I see a lot of other things. Let's see this, I know. No, that's something else. All right, some of them it's blocked actually. Well, the idea that actually you can just Google for some strings that are part of the URL of that cameras use. And here, for example, I go to some camera management page. So I have this place, and I can actually even control the camera. So I can move it, like you see, it's going a little bit slow, but I can go to the right a little bit. I can place it maybe down, maybe up, go to the left. So you see, I can actually control the camera even. Pretty simple. So that's even without knowing any hacking. Now, let's say that the camera has a username and password. Let's say it's secured. But is it? Because how many of you here that have their own router, camera, whatever device, change the default username and password? Did someone actually change? I will be honest by myself, I didn't change my router password even. Why? Because I think, oh, no one will hack to my system. But here, there is me watching now together with, I don't know, dozens of you that are here, random camera. So you can just go to the manufacturer company, whatever, if it's Philips or I don't know, whatever, some other company, just search for the model of the camera and find what is the default username and password, and you're in. So even if there is username and password, it's very easy to get in. Now, that's not very interesting. That's not why we are here for. We came here to do something more challenging. So what I'm going to do is actually, oh, by the way, that's those grandparents, I found it some time ago. That's in Amsterdam. But yeah, think about it, that you have your parents, or even you, sitting in your living room, and yeah, someone is watching you. Creepy, right? So let's do some hacking. So what I'm going to do, and I hope it will work, is to try to hack to one of the cameras that here in the conference. So yeah, wish me good luck. So what I'm going to use are two simple tools. So first of all, what I'm going to use are two simple tools. First of all, I need to, I'm connected to the network of to the Wi-Fi of the conference, but I need to find out who's also connected. So I need to identify if there are cameras connected and so on. For that, to search for cameras, I need to use something that's called port scanner. So cameras have like a very basic HTTP server inside, so they have like port 80, port 81. So what I'm going to do is to search for those ports and to see if there is some clients connected to the network that use one of these ports. So I use Nmap for that. Nmap is a free open source scanner. You can already see, is it clear? Yeah, the text is clear, right? So we can already see that there are 4 devices with few of the open ports that I defined. So if you want to see the command, so I just said, okay, search on this range of IP addresses, those open ports. Why those open ports? Because those ports are are commonly used for webcams. And I already found 2 clients that using port 81, 2 other clients that using port 21. Oh, and I already got something. So let's see. That's the interesting one. So this is the response to some HTML stuff. And let's see. So on this port we have something, and we have also. And we have something here. Okay, let's try that one. So I'm just gonna copy the IP addresses with the port that I found, as simple as it is, and I'm here. So welcome to IP camera. So now this has a username and password. By the way, I will already give you a small hint. It's not admin. That's already changed. So it's a little bit more secured. But like we said before, you can just find the default username and password because most people don't change those credentials. So we have this page, and what we're going to do is there are many techniques to actually hack and bypass this login system. One of them is finding the model of the camera, going to searching in Google for exploit. So you can just download it, run it, and most likely you will be within a few minutes. But I'm going to make it more interesting. Let's say it's a new model of camera, and it's a bit more secured, and I didn't find an exploit for it. So we're going to try to find what's the password. The way to find a password, there are many ways, but we're going to explore 2 ways. And the first one is brute force. Brute force is actually a mechanism that you can just try as many passwords and username till it finds. So you're just trying and trying till it gets a successful response. And for that, I'm going to use 2 things. I'm going to use Hydra, which is a tool that just trying the passwords. And I'm going to use a database which is actually available in GitHub. If you will go to my GitHub, my username is Guy Romb. You can find it there as well. That's my username. So actually, it's just a database that is a fork of a repository that collected all passwords, all the leaked passwords from Yahoo and other websites. So big website that the database got hacked and all the password and username got leaked. And what I chose is actually someone did some work for us, and he actually did some aggregation, and he found what is the most common username and password. So I downloaded like a list of maybe a few megabytes of the most popular username and passwords. And we're going to just try to use those small lists in order to hack to this camera. And the reason why I chose this, because probably it will be one of them, and secondly, we don't have that much time to hack, but it's in brute force, it's just a matter of time. So if you will run it for a few minutes, for 1 hour, for 1 day, and then you will get the password. So what I'm going to do for that, I'm going to use Hydra. Hydra is also an open source software. So you can see the command. So I defined the IP address. So I said use a top short username, top short list password. I downloaded it. It's a text with just a simple text file with a list of password and list of username. I'm going to tell him use this IP address, use this format of how to inject the username and password, and just let it run. And hopefully there will be something. And now this process can take maybe a few minutes. It depends how strong the username and password. And what it's doing, oh, it's already less than a minute. It already found. So the login name is admin. The password is admin 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, we're going to try that. I made it already, put it in. Let's try. Sweet. Now, it's a little bit slow, but it's less than a minute and we're already in, but let's try. All right, but it needs some edge, something. Live video. Sweet, right? That was easy. Now, let's say that the camera is even more secured. Let's say it has like a brute force connection, which many websites and systems are doing. So they have like some CAPTCHA, so anti-boot or anti-brute force systems. So let's assume that this is secured. But, and what we're going to do, so I logged out. Let's say we don't know, the brute force didn't work, we couldn't find a password, or there is a protection. The second method would be some reverse engineering. So reverse engineering is actually getting into the code. For that, you need some more experience with programming. And after you read the code, you can find some ways to compromise the system and try to get in. So what I'm going to do is going to the JavaScript. Is there anyone who's familiar a little bit with JavaScript here? Just raise. Oh, okay, quite some people. That's nice. So that's going to be easier. Now, the thing with JavaScript, well, you can easily find what functions are there, especially if it's not secure. So in this case, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to get into the console, and I'm going to just try because, well, it's very common to have getters and setters, so I'm going to just try to have get, and I can see which functions are there, and we can see get cookie, get current password. Let's try that one. That was simple, right? What would you say about it? Funny but sad, yeah, at the same time. So now this, well, I'll tell you, I did the reverse engineering a little bit in advance, but if you will go just to the sources, and you will go to the, oh, where's the, let me refresh. If you will go just to the JavaScript, one of the JavaScript files, so you can see different functions like get cookie. Actually, you can even set the password. So even if you can change the password for someone without need any access or credentials, which is very weird. And more than that, you can the thing you can see even the code. So in JavaScript, of course, it's on the client side. Not sure if you're familiar. So some code are processed on the backend side, which you cannot access, but some on the front end side. For example, JavaScript, which you can access the code. But still, also in JavaScript, for example, you can do some minification and uglifying of the code. So you can basically make it so ugly so no one can, it will be very hard to do reverse engineering here. But even this they didn't do for the IoT system. But you look, oh, who built that crappy software? But in the end, yeah, this is the situation today. This is how IoT devices are protected, not really protected. So there are much more, many more options how to hack to cameras. But let me continue with the presentation. And maybe summarize it with, I found it pretty nice. So the S in IoT stands for security, If you didn't get the joke, there is no S in IoT. So yeah, that's the situation today. Oh, great. Thank you. Let me try to close it. Oh, so the S in IoT stands for security. Now, I don't tell you smash your devices, or the IoT, because, yeah, just be aware that they are not secure, so be aware what you are using and so on. And more than that, for those who are engineers, developers, product managers, or whatever, those who just love to code and contribute, I want to show the following. It's something that I took from online. You can Google for it. But what I liked about it, that it's sort of some ethics for engineering, for software developers, to be aware about what they're doing, because you can develop something that used for, think about an IoT device that measuring your pulse rate, or some other, if someone has like diabetes or something. So today there is also automated IoT devices for that. So when you write code, you have to take responsibility. So you have to be aware that someone might hack that code and use it in the wrong way. So think about someone that having a heart problem or diabetes or something else, and using some device to maintain his health, and you have something wrong in your code, you can actually cause someone to die. And by the way, such things happen. There were X-ray devices with some bugs that was radiating too much X-ray, and patient died. So there was some, for example, an example of someone that had a cancer, got cured, and just to do some checkups, he went to do a CT, and there was a problem with the CT, and everyone was surprised that he got cancer again after it was completely cured, and they found out that the CT machine had a bug in their system, and it was radiating too much X-ray, more than it needs, and that's what caused for that person to have X-ray again. There are many examples like that. In the airplane industry, there were some problems with wheels that don't open. So in the end, the code that you write, be responsible for it and be aware of that. Now, there is a very simple principle called secure by design. And what it means, basically, that we as engineers, software developers, we should emphasize security from day one. So in many cases, yeah, we are lazy, we're just writing and we say later we will improve it and make it more secure and so on. Security will come later. But no, these principles say security comes first, it comes from day zero. So the way you build the architecture, the way you think how to develop it is including security in it. And what does it mean? It means that you have to ask yourself a question. If I were evil, how would I use some feature or this software? And you have to think like as a hacker. So like think how this software can be used. So for example, something simple feature that can be if you have a router. So many router has an option to remotely manage the management of the settings, of the configurations. So you can, if you go to the router page, you can enable and disable it. And like if I will ask even the technical people here, most of you, including me, probably don't need remote management of the router at home. Because, yeah, you never need to change, you don't need to change configuration in the router, and normally if you will do it from home. So why enable a feature like that? So in my router, for example, this feature was enabled by default, but most of the users don't need it, and it's just opening a door to compromise the security of the home network. So think about the defaults that you give to the router. If you build a web shop, so think about you have an administrator role. So administrator role doesn't need to be able to buy something. You just need to maybe turn on and off some configurations. So you have to limit the responsibilities and the roles and do some separations of concern. So like the admin, for example. In many cases, I could see web shop that admin could buy for free, do everything, and once someone could act to the admin user, he bought himself like many stuff. So that's something that shouldn't be done. So we could see before with the camera a few examples, but these are a few more examples. So you can inject some strings into the URL. You can, those things are pretty simple, and they can be avoided by using principle of securing by design. If you will just make a feature like the last one about a template, this is a feature, all right, it's doing what it has to do, but if you will ask yourself how someone, a hacker or someone else can use it wrong, and then if you just ask this question, you will see, oh, wow, it's so easy, it's so unsecured, so I should just add something to avoid it. So you just need to ask yourself the question, how can this feature be compromised? So here, by design, I have three different pillars. The first one is about confidentiality. So it means that only allow access to the data to the user that are permitted. Integrity, so to ensure that the data is not being tampered. And availability, so to ensure that systems will be available when the user needs the data. Considering each pillar will give you some guidelines about protecting your system. Another important point is about device authentication, as we could already seen before. So many users don't change the default username and password. So what can we do? We can actually, let's say you buy an IoT device, so you open the box, you can force the user to change the username and password. That's first of all, so part of the setup process. But also, to make it, except for just a password, you can make it more secure, but having two main principles. One of them is the password, so something that the user know, but also something that the user have. So it can be an SMS, it can be scanning a QR code that is on the box, so you can ensure that the user that knows the password is actually also the user that owns that product. You can just Google a little bit more about it, but that's really common today, that principle. Another interesting approach, that's a little bit like into the future, but I find it very interesting and also very important to the security of IoT. The thing is that nowadays, you hear about cloud. So everyone say cloud is the future, and cloud is like a big buzz. But is it? Well, the thing is that you have so many IoT devices. We could see before that by 2020, going to be around 50 to 100 billion IoT devices. It's a huge amount of devices. There's so much data being collected. There are temperature by sensors. There is images. Think about also big data, like for example, if it's a camera that collects image and upload it to the cloud, is also quite a big size of data. Now, cloud enabled to, in the future, will not be able to handle so much information because, it's so many devices, and so the size of the data also is growing. So think about also if it's a self-driven car, so it has a camera. Think if everything would be handled by the cloud, like, so let's say there is a piece of video or an image, sending into the cloud, and then the cloud is processing that information, and then sending back the response if the car has to go left or right. It would take so much time when something's on the road have to take less than a second, like immediately right, left, especially if you want to avoid accidents, because roads, when they are crowded, are unexpected. So cloud cannot handle anymore so much information. It's just too slow for that, to the amount of devices, to the data. So we are slowly actually shifting away from from centralization of the cloud. So cloud is a centralized thing. So and now we're going to decentralize the systems. So basically, we will have all the IoT devices will be able to process the information by themselves and to handle the data. So there will be microprocessors everywhere that the IoT manage it by themselves. And why is it also a big concern to the security? Because if the IoT device itself is unsecured, and it's the device that also handling the data, doing the processes, is smart, you cannot just assume, oh, the cloud or my backend is secured, so I don't need to protect my IoT device. That's wrong. And especially in the future when cloud is changing its role and becoming a little bit different than what it is now. So you can also see the world, like if you think about blockchain and some other technologies, everything becoming decentralized. That's where the world goes to. So actually, it was, if you look 20 years ago or more, actually the data, everything was decentralized, and then everything became centralized to the cloud, and now we're going decentralized again. And that's where the world is going to. Another aspect is about the security of IoT networks. So you have your normal network at home, but when it comes to IoT, it's a little bit more complicated, because with IoT you have new protocols, a new way of data transformation. So you also need a new way to protect the network, in addition to the traditional or to the legacy way of protecting networks, so firewall and those kind of solutions. What can be interesting, for example, there are a few startups in the world that what they do are they monitor the bandwidth of the network, and they try to find some abnormal activities on the network. They try to use artificial intelligence to see if there is a strange behavior in the network. So this is also part of the future of protecting IoT networks. And the last point I want to discuss is something I call security of the smart home. So we already said the IoT devices are not secured. It will take some time. It will take some time. Why? Because now around the world you can hear about regulations and new legalization of things regarding IoT. Standardization and so on. So there will be security. It will just take time. But what can we do till the point that those devices will be secured? Is actually we can think about an extra layer that protects sort of like a bubble that protects the whole IoT. So let's say the IoT are not secure, but at least we can add sort of a layer that protects them. And that's what I call the security of a smart home. And there are many companies also started trying to investigate into that subject. So think about, I will give you an example. Actually, a previous project that I was working on for AVG Avast, if you probably know them by the free antivirus. So what they built is they made like a sort of a router, except for the firewall and those kind of basic things that routers normally have. They added some security layer of actually antivirus and link scanning, packet scanning. So actually they analyze the packets that going through the router, and then because like I said before, there are databases and forums that list all the exploits. So if you know what exploits or what method are used to hack devices, if in the end the hacking goes through the router, you can try to identify, oh, this looks like an exploit. Why? Because I can recognize the packets and so on, and then just block it. Or see some unbehavior stuff, and some behavior that is not usual, and just maybe later on just notify to the user. So send notification, hey, something, your device was trying to be compromised, we blocked it. So those kind of things can be done. And it's pretty interesting. There are a lot of solutions and companies working on it and already available in the market. And yeah, like I said, you can, if you use artificial intelligence and make it a little bit more smart, so you can actually, make it even more smart. So learn on the go. So just see, like when I mentioned, for example, behaviors. So if you recognize that the user is not at home between 8 to 5 because it's at work. So if you see someone is connected to the network between that time, oh, well, there is something not usual here, maybe we should warn the user. Or maybe even connect it to the camera and send even a picture of the home to the user and say, oh, well, we see some unusual activity. So all those things can actually come together with the IoT. So if together, securing the IoT and also using IoT devices to secure you, it's a win-win situation. So, in conclusion, IoT creates huge opportunities and benefits for our life, from self-driving cars to making a smart home. However, we must make its security better. So, the security is growing very slow compared to the speed of the IoT growth. And we'll mention a few examples how to make it better. So it's about changing prioritization, taking responsibility as software developers and engineers about the code that you write, and also just, of course, innovating new solutions. So, antivirus for the normal computer was like a big thing some years ago. So if you're gonna make some security for IoT, yeah, it's going to be a great success because this market needs security solution. So that was me. I hope I could teach you something a little bit, or at least make you aware of the flows in security of IoT. That's my username, Guy Romb, in GitHub, Twitter, Medium, so you can find more information about me.